So let's talk about addiction. I know that you've shared details with me that you've used cannabis in the past and it brought a lot of like enjoyment to your life, but you noticed that over time you kind of gained a little bit of like a dependency on it, maybe like an emotional dependency. And I know also recently that you've decided to stop using cannabis. And I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on how that's been going and like why you chose to actually stop.
Yeah, it's starting to go well now where the cravings have stopped mostly. I have gone days without thinking about it, and that feels really freeing. As far as why I chose to stop, I think I saw that I was using it for something that I needed to address differently. It was a coping mechanism,
Okay.
and I needed to address why I felt like I needed that. I was using it to keep me from being bored. I was using it to regulate my emotions.
How so on regulating your emotions?
At the end of the day, I felt like I needed some sort of treat, like
Mm,
I had deserved this or I'd earned this. And so I would turn to that and let myself relax. I also used it to help me be present in the moment
okay.
because I'm one that's always thinking about the future conversations I'm going to have or the past conversations I have had or just future planning in general. And whenever I used cannabis, I could just be present in the moment and enjoy anything.
Because it kinda gives you, like, that hyper focus state, right?
Yes. And it started with me making mundane things really enjoyable.
Okay, like what?
Vacuuming or the one thing I remember was we had this carpet cleaner. It takes a long time to do it because you got to go over the carpet a bunch of times to get it all out. But I could pop in some earbuds and use some cannabis and really enjoy that. And so it felt like a life hack.
Like, you actually enjoyed it, like
Yes, I enjoyed cleaning the carpet, and I can enjoy most things with that.
yeah. I mean, I kinda feel the same way with alcohol, like, sometimes I find cooking really boring, but when I decide to, like, drink a little bit as I'm cooking, feel like I become very, like, focused on it, and I'm, like, enjoying it and having fun with it, like, kind of treating it like it's the only thing I should be doing.
Hmm.
But did you kind of feel that way with like some of those other activities you had to do that you just like were able to kind of just dismiss everything else and just like fully focus on those things and find the enjoyment from it?
Yeah, I guess I think that I was doing activities that my body didn't necessarily want me to do. It was if I take out this extra enjoyment factor,
Hmm.
then I probably wouldn't do this thing. And I was using it to avoid changing myself or growing myself or changing my daily habits and routines because I could just get enjoyment from anything.
Yeah. What made you start realizing that it was something you wanted to stop doing? Because right now, I feel like there's not many people that kind of talk about cannabis or weed within like a negative like viewpoint. And I just find it fascinating that you've kind of noticed that it's kind of restricted your life in some of these ways. I think this is like a really important topic to discuss. But what were some of those things you started noticing, like specifically, that started you kind of questioning your relationship with it?
I to begin with, I was told that it was non-addictive.
Okay, and you believe that.
I believed that. In my experience, that is not the case because I found myself. One of the first things was I was out with a group of friends, and I realized after a while I wanted to not be with that group of friends anymore because I was having a craving for the cannabis again. It made me
Mm.
want to leave this thing that I know that if I wasn't using that, that I would really enjoy and I would want to stay there longer. And so it was making me sacrifice things that I knew that I would want just for this emotional dependency or chemical dependency.
Okay, and that's what you started observing and being like, why am I feeling this way right now?"
Yeah, a friend of mine was telling me that she vaped nicotine and she found it became very othering. meaning she kept thinking like, well, when can I go outside and
Mm.
and hit this vape? And I was like, oh shit, like I feel the same way. In addition to that, I found my mental sharpness was not what it was and what I wanted it to be. I wanted more sharpness for this podcast
Hmm.
and just to be able to remember more of my life. A lot of my days look the same,
Kind of just like
especially
blurred into like one long day.
yeah, especially the since Lydia has been deployed, it all looks the same, and I wanted to be able to remember more of the individual small differences of the days, and I think that was affecting me.
Okay. Do you value having good memory? Like being able to think clearly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like what okay, what other values or things that you care about like deeply was cannabis kind of like interfering with?
I think I realized that I was kind of trapped at home sometimes because I didn't want to drive under the influence. And so someone might invite me to something, but I had just taken a hit of the vape. And so I couldn't go somewhere.
Mm.
That was kind of expensive. And it felt like something I didn't want to tell my kids about or anyone really. It was really difficult for me to tell anyone about it, but I really wanted to be fully known. And if I wanted to be fully known and I had this part of my life that I didn't want to tell people, there was a problem.
Hmm.
And I found it easier to quit that than to be known that way.
Okay. So you were feeling a lot of like shame about like this habit?
Yeah.
Like what was so like shameful about it?
Well, I think that I had gotten myself into a place where I was kind of a stoner, but I didn't accept that for a long time because I didn't feel like I looked like one, the
Mm.
stereotypical thing you see from television or movies.
You weren't wearing like a tie-dyed bandana or anything?
No, I didn't have a skateboard in my hand.
Oh shit. Then you weren't a real stoner.
Yeah, I didn't have hemp leaf stickers on everything.
But you had that idea in your head that's what someone that consumes like weed
Yes.
looks like.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any commonality with like that type of personality in your mind of what a stoner looked like?
I really started liking wearing hoodies a lot.
Okay.
I guess it makes people colder. That was my experience anyway, and so I was always wanting to have a hoodie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's like very like comforting.
Yep.
I feel like quite a few people I know that like smoke weed. Yeah, it's like kind of this. It kind of like amplifies being able to just fully focus more what's in front of you versus using your peripheral vision to kind of paying attention to your environment as much.
Yeah. Another reason why I really liked it was during backpacking. I would say I'm going to have a little nature with my nature, because it's just a plant.
Yeah. I mean, would you still like see that as like a valuable experience? Like a substance to kind of amplify doing like a larger experience like that of being out in nature and connecting with that?
Yeah, I think that because I'm in my head so much, it allowed me to get outside of my head and connect spiritually with nature or with myself in a way that I hadn't figured out how to do before without that.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed like so I actually don't like I can't really like smoke weed or consume weed much just because I have such bad anxiety that it causes a lot of problems for me. But I do miss it because especially those moments where I was able to become very present and I felt like I would be a lot more naturally emotionally connected to the things I was doing. And that was like a really valuable experience. So the only like few moments now I decide to do that is if I go like out of state, like backpacking. And I really do think that's like a valuable experience. But the the area that I think it could be kind of like dangerous with is if you're more of like a homebody and you're kind of like creating this natural intensity to whatever is in your environment to seem more stimulating or interesting than it really is. And that I can see from my own personal experiences using weed in the past, that would become like a trap for me where I would be able to rewatch like a lot of the same like movies or even like videos that I really enjoyed and like laugh about it in the exact same way. But I really like enjoyed that, but at the same time, and this is like one of the things I actually want to like bring up when it comes to like just like substance use or substance abuse is I even though I stopped using weed for that reason, I noticed that for a while I was actually using alcohol for that same thing, where I'd be really stressed like after work and want to do something that seemed like fun and enjoyable. And alcohol is kind of like a kickstart, like a cheat code to kind of get there fast. And then instead of being bored, what I would do is I would use alcohol and then I'd be like laughing about this video I was watching or this movie and like finding enjoyment in it. But then working and like trying to understand why I wanted to use alcohol in that way, like through therapy. My therapist actually had like a really good like idea, which is if I wasn't like drinking alcohol in that moment, would I actually enjoy those things that I was watching or doing? And the answer was actually no. Like I actually soberly, I actually was not interested in watching like those videos or watching that type of like movie, but alcohol amplified it and brings this side out of it to make it enjoyable. And so I do think there's this weird self question people have to ask themselves with substances, which is are the substances helping you actually achieve and do the things you really care about? Or are you potentially creating interest in things that don't really matter to you? Because if you're doing that consistently, you're not really living a life that's valuable to you. You're living a life that's valuable under the influence of something.
Yeah, it's like you add a little bit of sprinkles on the top of something that's not that good, and it makes it really palatable, but it keeps you from trying to figure out what you're actually craving, what like not just physically with your mouth or visually with your eyes, but just in your whole life.
Yes.
Boredom breeds creativity,
Yes.
and I was robbing myself of opportunities to be bored and think about what I really needed or what I really wanted.
Mm. So since you've stopped, has that been easier to like achieve, or does it feel like work trying to get there still?
It feels like work. I've had to just do the things that I know that I like, even though they don't sound very good, and they're slowly coming back and being enjoyable again.
Okay. Yeah. What is that? I guess what does that look like? The idea of what sounds enjoyable, like what sounds like pleasurable, like soberly. Because I think that's really interesting the way you're describing that. Like you use if you like use a substance and you're like feeling super happy, and then you start thinking about things you want to do. You're taking that state of yourself in your mind to how it would feel to do those things.
While sober.
No, while you're under the
Oh,
influence.
okay.
But then if you do it that while sober, you'd say you just got done doing a bunch of things at your house, you're a little bit stressed, and you think about doing that thing that normally you'd find enjoyable, but now you're like envisioning how it would feel in that current state of yourself with that little bit of stress. You're like, oh, you know what? That actually doesn't like really like sound very good. So I think my question was, what does that like? What does that specific feeling feel like of what makes something enjoyable of like doing those things like while you're high, what was it that made it seem more enjoyable like I guess what I'm asking you is when you were super high or if maybe not super high but just high in general, what did you enjoy from that experience?
I think I enjoyed that I could be present in the moment. I was also less judgmental of the ideas I came up with. So I found it easier to play and be creative and come up with ideas.
Okay.
And who doesn't love laughing? Laughing came a lot easier.
Yeah, so because you were so present you just weren't like overthinking things, you were just doing them.
Yes.
And I mean, that's to me, that seems like a really valuable thing to learn how to do, right?
Without the substance, you mean?
I'm just saying, even with substances, like that's a valuable thing. But it was going to lead into my next question, which is how do you achieve that? Like, what's stopping you from achieving that soberly?
I guess it's probably perfectionism, where if I'm going to do something, I feel like it needs to be perfect. And when I'm under the influence, then I don't feel like it needs to be as perfect. I'm less judgmental of those ideas. And so I can just move forward.
But why do you think that is? Like what is that? What's the difference between you being high versus like sober and doing that? Like, what was it just like this like the sensation of being so hyper present and focused that like it just kind of forced thoughts out of your head?
I guess I thought there was some chemical aspect to weed that made you less critical of your ideas and thoughts.
From what I understand, there is scientific research that it does help you focus very clearly on one specific thing.
One thing I found that reminds me of is that whenever I was under the influence, if someone took too long to respond in the conversation, my mind was already off onto the next idea.
While you're high?
Yeah.
Oh,
And so I'm
interesting.
wondering if it's not going back and forth, then I can just keep going forward and think about the next thing and not ruminate or dwell on it.
Yeah, so if it is like this like bounce back and forth in your brain on whatever thing you're focusing on, you're going to just like keep moving on to the next thing you're paying attention to, and you're just like, I'm focusing on that. I'm focusing on this. But I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons why, people like lose their memory while smoking weed, is because you're never able to actually fully process what those thoughts are. You're just experiencing that like hyper focused state on individual things. One of the things I really enjoyed about cannabis was in the past was using it for like meditation practices. It really, really helped me out in that way, actually, because it helped me be. I started trying to utilize that like hyper focus of being able to think about one thing to go really deep into like a thought about myself or like an emotion, be able to like focus on a specific emotion in myself. And I thought that was really a really valuable thing because I actually had some really profound experiences, and I got to the point where I was putting constraints on myself to not allow myself to use it without doing that first for a while, because it would it was like, I guess what I was doing when I was meditating and like I would like smoke a little bit of weed before doing this, I was trying to like psychoanalyze myself to understand what was missing from me being able to feel that way when I'm sober. So, because I felt a lot of the same feelings you're talking about, like felt super connected. I felt very like emotional. I felt like very like fun, laughing, and and I wanted so hard to like feel that way soberly that I would use weed to like go, okay, I'm feeling this way right now and it feels good. Okay, what does that what might be missing from that when I'm sober? And I'd have these like little epiphanies, and then I would whenever I'd meditate, I would take like a week long break in between these like weed meditations, and I would try applying those things that I actually like experience of being like, oh, I think like an example would be like, oh, I think one of the reasons why I don't feel as like silly when it comes to being around other people is because I'm actually putting a blocker up for myself of feeling like just the idea that I need that substance to be able to get to that place. And what I started doing was I'd be like in that moment in my head, I'd be like around people and I'm like, oh man, I want to be that fun, silly side. And I'd like start thinking about that's one of the reasons I want to go smoke weed or like to like hang out with them. But I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna just try switching into that, acting that same way right now, even though it's so uncomfortable. And I would do that, and I would actually end up slowly being able to get to the same place that what I was lacking soberly versus being high. And I was actually able to like achieve some of like the same emotional states when I was sober. So I found that a very like I found weed a very valuable tool in that way. But then when I started having panic attacks, that hyper focus just goes directly to my body, and I cannot think about anything else outside of that, and it's just terrible.
Yeah, I was confused at first of you saying why it's valuable, but I see what you're saying now, where it can give you a glimpse of what's possible,
Yes.
but you probably can do it naturally without the substance if you practice or figure out what you need to be able to show up in that way in that situation.
Yeah, and but this is one of the things I think maybe just certain types of drug experiences are actually really valuable, is they can help you kind of have different types of experiences that you normally wouldn't. Because if you haven't taken a drug, a type of drug, let's say like weed or maybe even alcohol, you are pretty constrained to just living life in the direction you're kind of naturally going, which is like is fine. You're going to be making choices based off of the way you normally think about things, unless some type of experience happens that kind of throws it off, like someone you know gets injured or some type of something causes like an emotional change in you. But what's so interesting about drugs is you can just be in your normal routine, you smoke some weed, and then all of a sudden you're maybe having like different thoughts or a different type of experience than you normally would. And so then you're like hypothetically able to experience something different outside of your life. And I think that can be valuable. Like any type of new experience can be valuable in that way. Um, but you have to be grounded to come back and to like still be living your life normally, you know?
Yeah, I remember the first time I used cannabis, and my reflection was, this is nothing compared to alcohol, because I had seen people, like close friends, get a little too drunk on alcohol, and they went from their normal self to be like an asshole, like a near
Mm.
violent asshole. And it blew me away, and it made me think, man, alcohol is really dangerous. And so when I tried weed the first time, I just laughed a bunch. I just wanted to eat some snacks. And it felt, I categorized it as, this is way less dangerous than alcohol,
Hmm.
which I guess I think is still true, but I was also assuming that it was non addictive.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big case to be made that, yeah, that cannabis is healthier than alcohol. But I do think there are different dangers with cannabis because you maybe have like less like physical like negative effects compared to alcohol where you're actually like harming your body in a lot of ways, but I think the mental negative effects of cannabis are much higher. I think it's much easier to I mean, I think it's been shown that like, there's a high percentage chance that people can actually have like a psychotic break or an experience while on weed. And then there's also like the idea of paranoia. And so I mean, from my experiences using like smoking weed, a lot of it's very like emotional, but also very like imaginative. Like I think you're like able to like kind of access your imagination more and how you like think about things. But if you are doing that for wrong reasons, like especially if you start thinking about things that are like scary, or you start thinking about scary things, or having paranoid thoughts, then you're potentially like creating these weird neural pathways in your mind to like make associations towards delusional thinking.
It's interesting. I did have paranoid thoughts, especially when I first started using it, but I had some sort of self awareness to say, oh, that's just the cannabis talking. Like,
Mm,
don't listen to that.
yeah.
So some people, it makes them more anxiety or anxious or paranoid, but I was able to just speak to that part of me and say, oh, you're just high right now.
Which I think is like that's healthy. That's a healthy. I would assume that's a healthy like mental block for yourself. But then if you start like leaning in and being like, what if this is not like paranoid type thinking? That I'm pretty sure that's what kind of led to me having body anxiety
Mm.
is using drugs and then starting to treat my thoughts more realistically, like they're true.
You mean you didn't have as much, or you didn't have body anxiety before using cannabis?
Before using cannabis and before using mushrooms, but before using drugs, yeah, I never had panic attacks. I had like just regular stress and anxiety, but I never had like concerns about my body in that way. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I would, I think that's one of the reasons I want to bring up like concerns when it comes to using these type things, because 100%, like I have firsthand experience for kind of fucking up my like mental health using these types of drugs.
I didn't know that that's when it started.
Yeah, I think I had a really bad experience on mushrooms once, and then that caused me to have my first actual like panic attack where like I so I guess I'll explain the story. So I got some like mushrooms from this is like years ago. Mushrooms from like a person that I knew or friend, and found I thought that I never had like taken like a bad mushroom. I never had a bad mushroom experience. I never taken like a bad batch of mushrooms or type of a drug before. And apparently they were actually not like the right type of mushrooms. They were actually pretty toxic. And so I ended up having a really bad experience, having so much body pain from this, and kind of like ha- the best way I can describe it is like those movies where like someone transforms into a werewolf and they just like rip off their
Yeah.
skin. That kind of happened to me because I was in so much pain that I ended up waking up underneath my desk, my office, passed out underneath the desk because I was in so much pain that I blacked out from it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, for like an hour or more. And I remember like just like kind of surrendering to the pain, thinking I'm like, I'm gonna die because this hurts so bad. And I had like a weird like out of body experience afterwards, after I think accepting dying. But ever since that experience, um, it like I'm like not a psychologist, so I don't want to like say like, oh yeah, I have PTSD, but I think I do have like some type of emotional trauma. Like it was such an emotional traumatic experience for me that it left this like imprint in my mind about what could happen when it comes to pain, or like getting to the point close of feeling like you're dying. And I think it was shortly after that, maybe like a couple months or so, I had my first panic attack smoking weed. And that's actually one of the reasons I stopped doing like the weed meditations, because I ended up like having a panic attack from it.
I think it seems interesting that you went back to mushrooms after having such a terrible experience, that it didn't scare you away from it.
No, so it's actually I am scared every single time I've done mushrooms because of that experience, and it can like go like two different directions. But I think the thing that kind of helps me decide that was kind of the idea that, oh yeah, those were not good mushrooms. Like there are some that are not toxic like that won't cause that effect. And I think the next time I did do mushrooms, I microdosed it to test it because I was also dumb. This is like I was just really stupid and never didn't like take like a smart approach to these things. So I just like used this whole baggie of it, and apparently it was actually like 7 grams of toxic mushrooms. And so now I'm like so cautious on using them and like testing them out, and I will never ever use them if I don't like know where they came from. It's just it's too high risk based off that type of experience. But yeah, if I ever take mushrooms, and like the only time I ever really do is like at like a festival, like now, like out of state. And but it can go two ways, either really negative and like scary and like leaning more, maybe it's still like paranoid thinking, or it's just like really concerned or a high worry thinking, or I have like a really profound emotional experience that really impacts me and changes my life. And those positive experiences are valuable enough to me that I have to like sometimes be brave to be like, you know what, it could go this way. And that shit's like probably the most like hardest experience to deal with in my entire life. But I know that I'm like dealing with enough like emotional hard things right now that I know I need that experience. Even if it leads that scary way, I still need that change of pace in my life to help me reevaluate things. So I feel like every time I have to do mushrooms, I have to be really brave about it. Otherwise, I can't do it.
Yeah, it's still interesting that you keep going back. Is it because it saves you money in therapy bills?
Well, I honestly don't do them a whole lot. It's more of just like when big life changes have happened to me, or like I feel like I'm in a rut with my own mind, where like I'm lacking motivation trying to do the things that I want. I'm kind of feeling like depressed, feeling very like anxious and worried, feeling very unhappy. Then I'm like, you know what? This is probably like a good time for me to use some type of like substance as a way to help bring out another side of me. And that's like the amazing thing, especially with psilocybin. It's been shown to actually like create new neural pathways in your brain when you take these types of substances. And so if you if you think of like your brain, like this is me like, trying to explain this stuff, and I'm not like a scientist or anything like this, just from my understanding. And so please like do your own research, and don't just trust what I'm saying. But from my understanding,
This is just our experience. We're not giving advice.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do not want to give advice, but from my understanding, your brain, just like your neural pathways, are like these like electrical like if you see like lightning strike something and it like instantly branches out drastically like a tree. Your brain fires off in these weird patterns of electricity through different neural pathways that you're used to, So like if something happens and you get like you start feeling scared, part of your brain in some area is firing this region that sets all these different like physiological like changes in the way you act, and you get so used to firing those same patterns that it's really hard to feel a different way when something happens and that triggers that. And what's interesting with what the research done with like psilocybin specifically is it can actually help you start using different parts of your brain to process emotions from the same type of reaction or same type of thing happening in your life.
This is like where you're talking about how you can use it as a tool to give yourself a glimpse of how you could process something, or a way that you could be, or
Yeah.
a thought pattern that you could have.
Yeah. Like this is one of the reasons they're giving it to people with like PTSD. You could have someone whose brain is so traumatized from like being in a war that they're afraid they're going to get killed, and their brain's firing this like complete fear reaction every single time when someone they don't know goes around them. Well, they're actually having studies of doing like MDMA and psilocybin therapy to help treat those type of people to be able to like reflect in their own like past experience, but feel a different way about it. And so like you're literally training people to experience a more natural or healthy way to experience that same situation versus what they had previously done before, which is like now rutted in their brain. That's like the default like way to act.
I feel like there was one time I used mushrooms at a festival that kind of gave me this experience,
Really?
where the first day at the festival, I was able to dance, but I felt like people were watching me. But the time that I used mushrooms, the come up was just everyone realizing that I was the main character of this festival, and it didn't matter what anyone else thought, and I could just really be myself and get into the dancing and not care any bit, like a single bit, about what anyone else thought.
Mm.
And that was a brand new feeling that I had never experienced before.
So you don't normally feel like, you know what, I'm good enough. I'm gonna enjoy this experience. Fuck what anyone else thinks about me.
Oh yeah, that good enough idea, that concept is still really difficult for me to wrap my head around. And so I'm worried that I remember not wanting to go dancing because I was not good at dancing. And then when I actually went, most people weren't what I thought good at dancing, but they were enjoying themselves and it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty critical of myself in those situations, but that gave me a glimpse of not being critical at all.
Yeah. So now that you have that glimpse, do you find yourself like thinking about that before you try one of those same type of experiences?
Yeah, I was waiting for my tires to get swapped at Costco, and I was writing something in the food court while listening to music, and the music was telling me, "Hey, move your shoulders, nod
Yeah.
your head," and I just let it because I didn't care what other people thought. It was more about how I felt doing it.
Doesn't that feel so freeing?
Yes, it feels very empowering. Like I've unlocked an aspect of myself that was there, but I didn't know how to get to it.
Wow. Well, I'm so happy you had like that experience. Did you ever feel that way when you were previously smoking weed? Did you ever feel like it helped you just fully focus on yourself? Because that's kind of like what like being hyper present is, isn't it? Of like not paying attention to the things around you as much.
Yeah, I think I may have been able to get there with weed, but I didn't go to a festival or I didn't go dancing like that. The
Okay.
same with mushrooms.
Interesting. So what do you do now soberly to kind of like that glimpse of a positive experience about yourself that you've never felt before? How do you expand that? Like, what are you doing to expand that side to get more comfortable with it or it becomes more normalized behavior?
I guess it's something that I learned through therapy where I have that voice that comes up that says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, you're about to move your body? What are people going to think?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Oh, hello, little part. You're trying to protect me from being embarrassed or from people mocking me."
Mm-hmm.
I get that and I actually appreciate it. But I have a different way of thinking about it now. I'm not going to, if I experience rejection, it doesn't mean I'm going to have to leave the village, the tribal village, and living on my own. Now I'm going to die.
Yeah.
It's just that person over there is going to think I'm stupid, and I care more about what I think of myself than what they think of myself.
Yeah.
So let's just move forward with the really embarrassing, potentially embarrassing dancing, and I'll check back in with you to see how it went. But I'm going to take control in this situation.
So talking to yourself like that, like
Yep.
it's just like a biological instinct to like to try stopping you from doing something because you're afraid of it in some way.
Yeah, I guess it's a neurological pathway, or in terms of IFS therapy, it's a part, the protector that I had formed a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, anytime I move my body, my parents and my sister would ridicule me for it because I wasn't good, because I had never practiced. And so I just trying to rewire or form a new pathway instead.
Wow, that's really awesome. I know you've mentioned that to me a couple times about like speaking to like those like parts of yourself more. And I think I need to do that too because the times that I have like taken the time to like focus on them and like speak to myself in that way and like learn how to dismiss it, it's been really like impactful and like valuable. Um, do you? Because I know you have a very like strong productive side of yourself that you want to achieve things. Have you ever looked at that side of yourself? If I think from our last discussion, you kind of like described you have a really hard time just like not doing much or like achieving things because it makes you feel like you feel like you kind of need to be something more than yourself. Have you ever tried looking at that feeling as a part of yourself and try and like communicate with it?
I think just since last week's episode.
Really?
Yeah, it's the first time I've considered that part of me is detrimental, where it's always pushing me and I can never be good enough the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that I'm seeing that could affect the way I view myself and the way I view others.
Mm.
Because if I can't grow, then shame on me. Or if I see a problem that I need to fix, shame on me for not fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets translated to the people around me as well if I'm not really careful. And that has definitely affected some of my relationships.
Okay. So since stopping cannabis, if you hadn't stopped, like let's say like you were following like the exact same routine of like smoking weed the way you were like in the past, do you think you would have been able to like play around with the idea of like the way you're describing of speaking to yourself in that way of like that side of yourself that needs to be very productive or like achieving something?
I think I would have but I just didn't have the right prompt. I
Okay.
think listening back to our last episode, it's so interesting hearing me say all of that stuff from a third person perspective, even though it's not really a third person perspective, but I'm hearing it after the fact. I think even if I was still using, if I had heard that and had that discussion, I probably would have come to the same conclusion.
Okay.
I don't know if it would have been easier or harder to deal with.
Okay. What do you think has been helpful now that like more recently you've stopped weed? Has things like actually gotten better in some areas besides like just maybe just memory?
The way it's gotten better is the story I tell about myself. I read this question that said, if my dependency on cannabis disappeared tomorrow without effort, what would I be most relieved about?
Mm.
And when I asked myself this question, I realized it was the internal debate, the constantly feeling not good enough, that I'm doing something bad, that I'm doing something inefficient, that I'm doing something that would be a bad example for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
That, in hindsight, is one of the most relieving aspects of having quit. Is I feel that the story is different now,
Mm.
and I don't have that battle going back and forth in my head of maybe today is the day. You can do it. You can do it. And then a few hours later, nope, it's not today. And then 2 hours later, oh, you disappointed yourself again.
Wow. So like a lot of like social pressures and also shame.
Yeah, internal shame.
Are you proud of yourself for stopping?
Yes, I am. It feels really good.
You should be, man. It's not an it's very easy to get trapped into just consuming cannabis for like most of your life. Um, I I went through a long period in like my early 20s of just like with like alcoholism and also like addiction to weed, where it just made everything so much like what you're describing, it made everything so much more fun and like enjoyable. And I was smoking a lot. Like as soon as I'd get home from work, I would just get so fucking high and would like smoke like a, a gram like a day of, of like weed. And that was really hard for me not to, same thing with alcohol. Just like I think it's a really profound and powerful experience to make a choice for yourself, even though it's less enjoyable. Of being like, you know what, these types of substances, the way I'm using it, are not actually being helpful for who's around me. Like that matters to me for my own like physical and like mental like self, and choosing to stop something that does seem more enjoyable and fun and makes life more interesting for those reasons is a very powerful thing to do. And so I don't know, I just have a lot of respect for you for making that choice, because I know so many people that have a really hard time getting off something like that because their identity gets starts getting associated to how they feel when they're high versus how you feel normally.
Yeah, I don't want to be afraid of trying substances in the future at some point, or even just developing an addiction or a habit that I don't want.
Mhm.
How do you think about the difference between this helps me cope versus I'm kind of stuck in this, or this keeps me stuck?
Yeah, I think it's like the distinction, kind of like we're talking about, of using something as a tool. I think the distinction would be using something proactively because you know why it's good for you versus a dependency, which is a requirement to need that to get to some baseline that makes you happy again. And so the thing that's helped me get off like certain I mean I'm still like highly addicted to nicotine right now, which is like one of the hardest ones it's taken me to get off. But with getting off of weed and getting off of alcohol and not being actually dependent on them, looking at them as like not restricting myself from not like using them, but looking at them as like more of a valuable tool if used with a specific intent. So alcohol is like a really good example because there's so much research coming out now that it's like terrible for you. And I don't like how I feel after, like, I get such bad hangovers where I feel like I'm hungover for like 3 days straight after you're drinking
Oh,
alcohol.
wow.
And, but so like part of me can be like, wow, this is not very good for me. And I know that when I'm hungover, I'm not able to like work as well. I'm not able to like connect with my kids as much. And so I've had to make a choice of being like, okay, that alcohol is not good for me because it's impacting all these different areas. But then I'm like, okay, what is good about drinking alcohol? Well, in the first day that I decided to do it, when there's been a break, I actually have way less of a hangover the next day. My sleep doesn't get impacted as much. Oh, when I use it around other people, it actually helps me put my guard down a bit and have a very vulnerable, connected experience. Oh, it can actually help me like dance. And so when I choose to drink alcohol, I'm trying to use it to amplify those things that I know are good for me. Not that I need them to get there, but sometimes that more intense variant of that experience is nice. It's nice to have like a moment where you're like feeling free when you haven't in a while. But trying to achieve that every single day is unrealistic. But choosing to drink alcohol as a way to amplify that and have that experience every once in a while is valuable to me. So I think that's like the big distinction from like my thoughts is using it with like an intent where you know and you are aware of what the value of it is and how to use it versus you are just longing to be in a certain place and that requires you to have to use that substance to get there.
Have you learned any like early warning signs that you're becoming more dependent on something, and know to look out for those?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of like one of the things I mentioned before is if I feel inclined to just want to like watch like some dumb YouTube videos or like a movie or TV show, it's usually the feeling of being bored, which is like, oh man, I'm starting to feel like really bored and nothing seems fun. Oh, that would be really nice just to have that instantly hop into that fun experience. That's usually an early sign that I'm like, okay, now I'm my life is becoming dependent on using that to have certain experiences.
You mean you're wanting to pump the brakes if you're just trying to push the end boredom button?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if enough time has gone by where I'm like, no, it's been like a couple weeks, and you know what, I want to go like dancing, and that dancing sounds like a fun experience. Dancing by itself does. Oh, and alcohol just like amplifies that. I think that's a good use case versus like I'm just bored at home and I don't know what to do, and I'm going to just like use this substance as a way to make anything sound fun. Um, so yeah, it's still more like the intent of knowing what I want to do soberly and using the substance to achieve that versus I just want to feel like I'm on that substance.
If I'm bored and I'm turning towards a substance, then I need to be careful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can say the same thing with anything. You can say that with phone use too. I really just love the idea of viewing things as tools versus like tools to achieve certain experiences that you want versus you are trying to experience what it is to use that thing. And so like a phone would be a really good example because it's really easy to get addicted where you're literally just using your phone as a way to like feel a certain way. You're like watching things. It's like
To feel something.
yeah, to feel something. But if you're not using your phone and you naturally feel something, you're like, oh, I'm really interested in this thing soberly. Then using it as a way to like achieve or amplify what that thing is really beautiful because it's still an association to you. It's still a part of you. But the moment that it starts trying to control you, then it's like not a good thing. So a tool is like I feel like the best way to look at that because a tool requires a person using it for something versus a tool using you, is just a douchebag person that wants to have sex with you.
All of these addictions or habits seem like such good examples of being in that region beta paradox where they make things seem nice and that makes it even harder to get out of.
Yeah.
What approach did you take to end your past addictions or bad habits?
It was really not easy. I think I feel like I have a hard time speaking about this because I know I'm still like addicted to some things. Like I might be able to like give my thoughts and advice on try not to be addicted to phone use or alcohol, but I still have moments where I still get caught in that. But it's I think the fact that I feel more comfortable with overcoming that still, I feel like I can like speak to it more. But the biggest thing for me that helped me specifically with like alcohol and with nicotine when I've stopped like in the past was creating a new identity for myself. I think that was the hardest part is I had this like perceived idea of what I enjoyed and who I was, and that identity of myself was associated to using those substances. So whenever I'd have to go hang out with people, I thought people needed me to be drinking alcohol because this fun, crazy side of myself would come out. I was like really silly and goofy, and people like that about me. And having to disassociate with drunk lane being what people want to be around with me and being around only people that like me who I am like soberly, like being able to like pull away from I guess the requirement of me being under the influence of something like that what was really helpful. So like yeah, I think just identifying with myself more and building variants off of that versus like me identifying as like if I was like a stoner that like I'm just a type of person that just like smokes weed all the time. That's what I do for fun. Or all I do is just drink alcohol for fun because that's who I am and that's the only way people see me is under that influence of something. I think learning how to just have a sober identity is very important.
I think I experienced kind of the same thing. I honestly, whenever I quit, I kind of didn't know exactly how I did it. and I was trying to think of the things that helped me, and I started telling people about my use, and I think that kind of dispelled the shame.
Mm.
I think I like this question of if you had to give this substance a job description, like what would it be?
Oh, interesting.
And I think it was making me more easygoing and adaptable, but that's not really who I am. And so I needed to kind of face things and kind of stand up for standards that I have or things that were important to me.
Mhm.
And it was allowing me to push those off. What would be the job description of nicotine for you now?
Oh man. Yeah, uh, I started smoking like cigarettes when I was like 17, and ever since then I got like hooked on nicotine. I think out of everything, nicotine's been the hardest one to get rid of, because not just because it's so accessible, but because of like the high is like so short-lived, and also like what I use it for, which is funny because I was just talking about like my identity with it. So nicotine's like job description for me is focus lane. Like help I use,
I'm here to help you focus.
yes, yes, yes. And
Hmm.
because I like do programming stuff, which requires very high levels of like focus, getting in a flow state, that's one of the main reasons I use like nicotine, is to stay in this mental place of focus, to be able to like, there's a high chance I have ADHD. My therapist has like pretty much like made that claim, and I need to like go in for like evaluation, but I'm fairly positive that I do. And it's known that people with ADHD use stimulants in a way to help them focus naturally. And I could see that potentially being a reason why I got so addicted to nicotine so early. But I don't know if that's fully the case, because nicotine's just fucking so
Highly
addictive.
addicted. Yeah.
Yeah, just dopamine releases constantly. But so I have like this very high level precision job that requires me to focus. And there are times where I feel like I can't, and that I need nicotine as a way to give me like that stimulation to be able to focus and think clearly and think very fast. So I kind of use it in the same way that I use caffeine, which is to just fully focus, be able to intellectually think very strongly, be able to systematically view things. And there are times whenever I've quit that I feel like I feel stupid. Like I feel dumb when I stop like using nicotine or caffeine, because I feel like I can't think clearly, and I start feeling bad, like I'm not as smart as I really am, because I'm not able to think clearly.
So, wanted project manager to sit over Lane's shoulder to help him increase focus because his focus isn't enough as it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And like people like that's what I get paid for, is my ability to focus. Do I think that I could do that, get to that place soberly? Definitely. The thing that stops me from doing that is that it requires some time for me to get there. And
The interim, you can't handle the interim.
yeah, I'm like out of I'm like decommissioned for a bit, where like I can't like achieve at that same level for a while, maybe like a week, maybe two. How much of that could be just a belief that I have? It's there's a high chance of that. Like this could all be like psychosomatic, that maybe I am able to think clearly as I think I do, but I'm just like so dependent on thinking so quickly that I think I'm like not achieving as much by not using it.
Yeah, this reminds me of my perfectionism, where I think I need to be at a certain level, but maybe this other level down here would be more acceptable.
Yeah.
But you're saying in this interim time, I can't drop from 100 to 70% because that 70% is not enough.
Yeah. And I think like objectively, I think it would be enough. I think you're right. It's more of my perfectionism of knowing what I could achieve. It's
Potential is so dangerous.
Yeah, it's funny because we were just talking about like that, having a glimpse of a different type of experience. I think that's one that's been really bad for me, is knowing how efficient I can work and how hard I can work, and how much people enjoy that I've kind of built my identity around acting that way.
So because you started when you were 17, and I think that's when you said you got your first job,
Yeah.
you've never really experienced your productivity and your focus without nicotine?
I've actually never thought about that. Yeah. That's actually really interesting. Yeah, I've never made
Mm.
that association because in high school I actually had a really hard time focusing on things. Huh. Yeah, I'll have to sit with that one for a bit. That's interesting.
Do you find yourself saying I should and I should quit? Or
All the fucking time. And it's mentally exhausting questioning yourself like that.
I heard this idea of looking inside the should for the want. Like
Okay.
the example was a little baby that's crawling. They don't should themselves into walking. They just naturally want to go there, and so they naturally go there.
Mm-hmm.
What could be some of the wants that are hidden inside that should?
When it comes like with like nicotine,
Yeah, like I should quit so that I can get relief from cravings, or relief from anxiety between hits, or from negotiating with myself all day, or I want to trust myself again. There's some desires that you could maybe find inside there and use those rather than the should, because shame and should is kind of about stopping behavior or trying to stop you from doing something,
mm-hmm.
and it feels like a really narrow path. But if maybe you can look and give yourself a bunch of options on ways to achieve the want that you're wanting inside of that should, you might find one of those options of being you're able to do it just because you want to. You don't need motivation, you don't need discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what could be a want inside of your should?
Yeah, so I think I've been off and on nicotine for so many times now that I kind of know what that want path is. It's just really hard. I think it's gotten more complicated because of the fact that I'm aware of it. Um, and what that is when I'm off of nicotine, I am so much more happy and emotionally connected to myself. Whenever I've gone like there's been moments where I've taken a couple like months break off of nicotine, and it's always the same thing. Like after like a couple days, I instantly get this huge wave of emotions in myself where I'm like, oh my gosh, whoa, I just feel so happy to be alive right now. Whoa, I just feel like so emotionally connected, and I like will start crying, and I feel real, like I feel alive. And the moment that I use like nicotine, I feel like I detach from that every time. Like I feel like
Hmm.
almost instantly that I become so intellectually focused that I'm not focusing on emotionally how I feel. And it's really sad because there's a big part of me that wants to be emotionally connected to myself because it's very depressing and like not a very happy life to not be to feel emotions. And I don't feel emotions all the time, or I need intense things to bring them out in me because I think I'm so stimulated all the time from dopamine from nicotine.
Yeah, it sounds like this. One of the stories you're telling yourself is, I am not enough being this emotionally connected, happy, expressive person. I also need to be able to have intense focus.
Hmm.
And if I didn't have that intense focus, I'm unacceptable.
I think that's a really accurate like description of it. And I think the only other thing like to attach on to that would be that it feels good to use nicotine, like the dopamine hit. Because all the times that I've taken breaks from it have been some of the more profound adult moments in my life where I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I'm like meditating more. I'm just like feeling happy with myself. I'm connected with my kids, like my friends, family. And then I just start feeling so good that I'm like, you know what would feel even nice to make this good feeling feel good? To use a little bit of nicotine. And then the moment I decide to do that, it just never goes away. I'm stuck in that place again.
So you love the state that you're in, but the story you're saying is this could be even better.
Yes. Yeah. Which is so scary to think about people who get addicted to like heroin or like cocaine. These like, I'd say mainly maybe like cocaine because it's a stronger dopamine release. And I've always been like, no, I don't think I've never used cocaine, but I'm like, no, there's no way I'd ever get addicted to something like that. I'd be strong enough. But I'm like, shit, if it's hitting the same like receptors, or like same chemical in my brain as nicotine, and how much I feel like, oh yeah, I'm feeling content and happy right now. Oh man, that would feel so nice to have a little bit something extra. I could see how people get addicted to that. And it's just really scary how subtle that feeling of just like, I can feel a little bit better right now.
Kind of sounds like perfectionism again,
In which way?
where I'm feeling really happy, but I could be happier.
So the
I could
potentiality
I could be
again.
perfectly happy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So it's just like it seems like almost like from what we're like discussing is like potentially if you reach certain states, you can't like ever go back. Like once you know the potentiality of something, whether that's from someone else telling you something or you've experienced something and you're like, you know what, there's something more that I can experience from this state. It's so easy to compare our current state to these other parts of like other um, potential like probabilities of things we could do to feel that way, that no wonder like we like don't feel good about ourselves. Like no wonder we don't feel good about who we are in this moment when we know we could be all these different other things.
I kind of wish I could delete this idea of potential. It seems so dangerous that it's this gold medal that's off in the ether, and we can get there, but the things we do to try to get that are harming us.
Well, I mean, to make an argument for it, I think it's been very valuable through like evolution. I think I wouldn't be surprised if it's like an evolutionary trait where it's being able to like, it's just goals. It's being able to achieve goals of like an idea of something. Like, let's say you're like, you're like some type of like caveman person, like living in the jungle, and you find a banana and it's the first type of like sweet thing you've ever eaten. Well, there's a high chance that the desire to want to experience that again helped you like leave the cave and to go like explore more. And so, I mean, that's a weird example I'm coming out with, like, or the analogy I'm coming out with on the spot. But I could see it being really valuable for someone that's not really making progress. But if you're already someone who's making progress, it can be really dangerous, like accessing that constantly.
Why are we setting this goal of feeling perfectly happy? Like it seems like not a healthy way to think about it.
Yeah, I think it's like the way that I would have to describe it from my own experience for myself would be that I'm just kind of ungrateful. Like I don't honestly think that I'm grateful enough for around the things that I have in my life, which kills me to like say, or even like I have a lot of shame about that, of like feeling ungrateful for the things in my life that other people have. And gratitude is just like focusing on the things like around you. And this kind of like came up in my mind because I feel like I have had experiences where I didn't feel like I needed to like achieve things as much, and those are the moments I was like the most happiest. And there was like a mantra I'd kind of say to myself, like in moments where I'd start feeling that, I'd be like, you know what, this right here is enough. I would just like say that to myself, this moment right here is actually enough, and
You say it out loud?
yeah.
Hmm.
And and I'm just going to like experience and appreciate for what this is now. And that's been popping up in my head for like the last couple of weeks because I'm trying to like meditate more and I'm trying to use nicotine less. And I want to be more grateful. And I think if you pay attention to things around you and you like are okay with that, you're not going to be really forward thinking as much. You're going to be more present, and you don't really need that as much. And so I wouldn't be surprised if focusing on future goals or the probability of something you can do or achieve is just a distraction from the fact that you're not really paying attention enough what's around you. And that fucking sucks to hear or think.
I want to be more grateful.
Yeah. Have you ever done like gratitude journaling?
No, the thing that I've done surrounding gratitude is negative visualization.
Okay. In which way?
The idea, it was from that book written by Eckhart Tolle. I can't remember the name of it, where he said, just you to be happy, all you need is to want the things you already have. And to do that, you can imagine losing them, a person or a thing or an experience or yeah, anything, and just closing my eyes and going through the idea of losing it, then I immediately love it more and am more appreciative about it or for it.
Mm. Well, I could see that. See, this is my issue with with where I'm at now with like nicotine is I don't even think I can even emotionally get to a place where that would like I could even think about that would like impact me emotionally. Like I don't think I could visually in my head right now if I tried think about like losing something and having an emotional reaction from it.
Because you're so much in intellectual mode.
Yeah, that like or the or that I'm like not able to even like my attention span's so short that I can't even get to that place. And that's the issue of nicotine is I'm constantly just getting like these like bumps of focus and it just removes my emotions. I feel like I have like a filter over me of like emotions and it sucks.
I'm sorry you're dealing with that. That sounds awful.
Well, if I wasn't on nicotine right now, I'd react more emotionally to what you're saying. So thank you. But no, I agree, and I feel bad about myself that I'm in this place, and but I know I'm working on it, and I'm making better progress than I have over the last couple years when it comes to this kind of stuff.
It's interesting you feel like you need to be in intellectual mode, but you also simultaneously feel bad about being in intellectual mode
Yeah,
because it removes access to your emotional side.
yeah, it's I think it's like a value trade off, for survivability of having a job and income that pays for the things I need and my kids. Intellectual side of lane is valuable socially, but emotional side of lane is more valuable to me and probably the people that really care about me.
You're saying that the emotional side of you is not valuable to your career.
Uh, I'm quick to say yes, but I actually have had a lot of experiences where I was doing this my same job while emotionally connected to myself, and I feel like it actually was even better. And so I think I'm just lacking the experience again of trying it and really evaluating what that experience is.
You
Yeah.
mean because used it since you were 17 for the most part?
Yeah, or like I think the last time I've taken a big break from nicotine with like my work and like really got to experience that positive side of me not using it or being more emotionally connected to myself was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And that's like so much time has passed that it's hard for me to really relate to that experience now. And so I think I just need a new one of like just kind of trusting myself that that's going to be a valuable thing and experience that and have like those emotional reactions to things and then using that as a grounding mechanism to be like this is valuable and keep going.
The idea, I think there's an interesting idea that you can quit too soon and it's going to cause you just to relapse back into it. How do you think about when it's time to do an experiment like that again?
um I think it's when I'm motivated to want to take care of myself. Like a lot of my motivation of being like, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing and it's actually I'm going to be able to maintain it." It's usually that I'm such a in such a bad place like emotionally and so unhappy with like life that I'm like, I don't deserve this. It's almost like this like it becomes like self-love where it's like, "You know what, Lane? You deserve better than this." And as difficult as these things are going to be, your well-being and happiness are the highest priority. And putting that as like the main focus in whatever way that looks. Um but sometimes it's hard to get to that place to make that choice when you've escaped it and gotten back into it and escaped it again and got back into it. With addiction, like in my personal experience, especially with like nicotine, doing it off and on so much and feeling like I'm just gonna fail again, or maybe I'm like just like stressed and want to distract myself from the fact that I need to do it. It's hard, but finding that love for myself, I think, is what really drives it. What about you? Like, have you um found that out for yourself?
I'm not sure. The cannabis addiction was probably my only addiction. I was really overweight for a while, so maybe there was some kind of food addiction, and so I've I've not really experienced this that many times.
Okay.
It was just kind of one big long chunk of usage. But it seems like it's so much about the story of I I want to be healthy long term. I want to be more cardiovascularly fit, and trying to I guess it's trying to find something that's just like a natural desire rather than waiting for motivation or needing motivation, because I don't know, I think these chemicals are really strong and
Hmm.
can override that. But if you change the story that you're telling about yourself, like you mentioned before, then you just kind of want to fall into that role naturally.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're putting pressure on yourself, or there's some kind of should where you're just worried about failing again.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
What's something you could use to help yourself focus in place of nicotine?
When I was exercising a lot, um, like running, that helped out so much. Where
Hmm.
whenever I needed like a boost of energy, I would just like go for like a sprint, like run like a couple
Oh,
miles,
wow.
and I would feel like so pumped up from that that like I don't think I really like needed nicotine. So I traded off using like dopamine from like substances to getting like a dopamine high from exercising intensely.
Yeah, I read something about that where a craving is a somatic experience, and you can address it by doing physical things with yourself. And the example was just dropping, doing some push-ups,
Hmm.
but going for a sprint is definitely the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get back there too when it comes to like exercising, but yeah, I think having really high cardiovascular health and being able to like enjoy the experience for what it is versus it being just like this like the worst thing ever was really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
running is really hard to get back into.
It is so hard. I mean, you know what? That might be harder than getting off nicotine, honestly. I will say that. Yeah.
So if someone recognizes something like this in themselves, where they have an addiction or a habit that they don't want to quit, but maybe they're not ready to change yet, what do you hope they would feel after hearing this conversation?
The biggest thing I'd hope they would feel is like a curiosity or desire to really understand what makes them happy, like what makes them actually enjoy life. And sometimes these type of conversations, like or like having this type of conversation with someone, always like gives me kind of flashbacks of a really close previous experience of when I like felt the most happiest, and like how it felt to feel like safe and like calm, um almost like feeling like a child again, where you're like things are just like easy and things don't really seem as like intense or stressful. Like those type of experiences are still available. It just requires finding out what you really care about, what really makes you happy, and looking at your life in an honest like view, and seeing if there's anything that's like stopping you from being there. So many people are addicted to like nicotine right now. It's like becoming this huge problem. Like kids are, and it's one of the only things I would ever say that I wish I had never tried once, actually. And I tell people that it's one of those things I don't think you ever want to try, because just having that one experience is so addictive. Um, but a lot of people that I know who are addicted to like nicotine or maybe even alcohol, life can just like seem like dreadful, like really boring, colorless. It feels like this giant long like drudge to the end of life, and you can feel like depressed or unhappy, and that you miss what it feels like where life was just easy and you felt like happy and content. And I think finding out what makes you happy and learning how to achieve those things and having like really strong emotional connection to yourself, you can still have those type of experiences. And that's what I reflect back on, when I last like time I really stopped like using nicotine and alcohol. I was exercising, take care of myself, and meditating. I would just have these such strong, profound experiences of just like walking outside and being like, just like crying because I was just like so happy to just be there outside. Something so simple. And it was like some of the happiest like few months of my life doing that. And it's really helpful for me to know that that is like achievable and it is possible, but it does require a lot of work. But if you can find that motivation to be like, you know what, I actually really deserve to be happy like that, use that as motivation to make those changes and not to let anyone else and how people perceive you, how people, what kind of expectations people have of you to do. Like if you go to someone's house and they hand you their vape and they're like, no, I'm good. Like it's a hard thing to break that expectation that people treat you as this type of person. But if you can do all those things out of like the care for yourself, I think it can just lead to like really profound, beautiful experiences that make life worth living.
Yeah, I love that idea that you can be happy from something really small, and people deserve that happiness. I think it still seems silly to look at a tree and be really happy from it, but wouldn't that be really nice if you could find extreme happiness from the smallest things? That feels like a really good life if you can make your day every single day from something tiny like that. You don't need a huge goal.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would add to this is that I people that are going through this are not alone. I think I felt alone. I I thought I was the only person like me that was going through this. And then I started telling people about it, which was terrifying to begin with. And everyone, a lot of people that I told was like, oh, yeah, I've dealt with something like that in the past too. And it just made me feel more human and not just like an alien in this world.
Hmm. Wow. Well, I'm happy you got to experience that, and I'm seriously like super proud of you for being able to like get off like a substance like that because it's not easy. And you should be proud of yourself too.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah, and you should definitely go find some trees that bring you happiness.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that conversation, maybe leave a comment down below or check out our channel.